And I sent that list to all of the committee members. I'll make sure to add Copper Kettle to this electronic list too, Ruthie.
Okay, thank you.
I've kept that link open, so if anybody else signs up for it, I will add your email to the back end of that, so that it'll just go straight to you and you'll see it that way.
Okay, thank you.
That's nice of you. Hi there. Come on over. You can sit wherever you're comfortable, or they can see us. This is Jill. She's going to be running our meeting, and Ruthie is our city council representative, and she's going to be helping with this. And there's a camera right up here that's going to show you guys. And if you have questions, this mic is pretty strong. It should pick you up, and they should be able to hear you that way. And Marnie,
sorry.
Marnie said she's running a few minutes behind, but not to wait on her. She'll just pop in whenever. So.
Will they be able to see what I share on the screen too there?
Because I have that big monitor up for them.
Okay, great.
Yeah, we can give her a few minutes to see if anybody else pops in. Hi, TJ. Can you hear us okay? Oh, there she is. Oh, that was fast. Look at your mask. I like it. Hi there. Yeah. I can maybe turn this a little and see if that helps us.
I'm going to let Mickey in, Leah.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Go for it. Hey there. How are you?
Hey, Mickey.
I recognize you. I know I got your I'm probably not tonight, but there's Mickey. I told Mickey he's got to come too. Mickey, we have to go jam with Bill at the senior center when they do their jam over there in the evening.
You tell me when, I'll be there. Oh, yeah.
Tonight at 6. Maybe next time.
Say tonight at 6?
Yeah. Maybe we'll practice and catch him next time.
That sounds good.
I'm going to grab a couple more packets out of the lobby, and I'll be right back. Yeah, you. That was just something. No, I was sitting there last night for the council meeting doing the computer for that. So that's, you can move that or use it. She is going to try to pop in. I think she had a meeting before this, and I don't know if that was going to run long, but she was hopeful that she would be able to get down here. Oh, Mickey. Yeah. Mickey, I don't know if you can get him that shorter notice, but he needs to come play. He's really good. He's modest.
I like to set expectations low.
Well, we got to get you and Mike to do a dueling banjos.
I'm all for it.
I think that would be awesome. Just show up and jam.
Leah, I'm going to go ahead and pop this screen up and make sure that it goes through before we get into it here. So hopefully everybody can. That's not what I wanted. Hang on a second. I thought I had it already.
I need to cut my hair like yours.
There we go.
I have to get, Riley Mm-hmm. Oh. Sure. Yeah. It looks great. Oh, that. I love it. I'm ready to get brave.
Lisa from my 14 office.
Leah, do you want to wait a couple more minutes, or what's your pleasure?
You know, there's I think I talked to Brad Spencer, and he wanted to bring Sing from the donut shop, but we're gonna get Sing a translator, and I'm gonna have you just sit down with them directly to make that easier for them, I think.
Okay, that sounds good.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, we got another one. We're hopping. Welcome. We got some packets up here, and if you'd like a mask, I've got some masks. Whenever, Jill. I think.
Okay. Great. Well, I'll go ahead and get started then. Thank you all for coming. And we thought this would be a good way to try to go over everything with you, but please don't think that if you don't get something or you have questions, it's not a terribly detailed process, but it can be a little bit confusing. So if you have any questions whatsoever, I think my name and phone number and email address are plastered all over these forms, and please don't hesitate to give me a call or email me or whatever it is, and I'll help you get whatever you need, okay? I'm Jill Saygesser with the Wheatley Group. The Wheatley Group assists the city of Charlestown, in particular the Redevelopment Commission, with a number of things, and this grant opportunity became available. Earlier this year, the city of Charlestown applied, the state ran out of funding, and so they offered the city a chance to apply in what is called phase 2. So the city actually, in getting money in phase 2, was able to get more money than what they applied for in phase 1. And that's what we're going to go over today is whether you could qualify, how you could qualify, what you need to do in order to, I'm going to admit somebody else, what you need to do in order to apply. So what we've got here on this screen is just the what's on the city's website, and I think is what was sent out to all of you that had filled out the inquiry that the city put out saying, if you are interested in this, please give us your contact information. You may get these forms more than one time. I have a list of those of you who had requested information, and I just want to make sure that everybody that wanted information gets it. And so you may actually get these forms more than once. So I apologize if you do, but I'd rather you have too many opportunities than not enough. So on the website, we'll go through in this packet everything that you'll need to do to apply, and we'll go over a little bit of different questions you may have with regard to how to apply, who's eligible to apply, how much you can apply for, what you can use the money for. So I'm going to scroll down here. Again, if you have any questions at all, and don't hesitate to contact me either by email or by phone. And as Leah said, there's some people that will need some translation assistance. We know that, at least that some businesses do, and so the city's making arrangements for that. So I want to get into kind of the purpose. This document obviously is on the website as part of a packet. This is not something you need to fill out. This just tells you almost everything that you need to know about the program. So if you had questions about how much you could apply for, where the money comes from, why did the city get this money, then this kind of walks you through that. And I'll do that briefly with you. So as I said before, the city requested and received $250,000 from the Indiana Office of Community and Rural Affairs. that is money that flows from the federal government to the state and then to the city. This money is to support local businesses in the city of Charlestown that have been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. So also these resources support local Charlestown businesses that retain employment of citizens. These funds are CARES Act money. Maybe you've heard of the CARES Act. That was the big $1 trillion package that went through the federal government earlier this year that provided unemployment assistance, that provided the payroll protection program, Small Business Administration loans to businesses. So if you are one of those businesses that received that money, you're still eligible for this money, but we'll need to know, and I'll go through that if you did receive it and how much. One thing that the federal government does not like is duplication of benefits. So if you did get that money, it's okay. We just need to know how, and we'll ask some more questions about that. And I'll get into that a little bit later. So some of the funding regulations, and what that means is that this is federal money, so it has some strings attached to it. One of those is, what type of business are you? And then that determines whether you're eligible or not, or helps to determine whether you're eligible. So there are two types of businesses. There's a business that has more than 5 employees, but less than 100 employees, of which the owner is not one, which, will be probably your restaurants, some of those that, about any business that has more than 5 employees. And then the other is a micro enterprise business, which is considered 5 or fewer employees, one of which is the owner. So if I have a store and I'm an actual employee, so I'm receiving a W-2 or I'm receiving some kind of payment, and I have 3 other employees, then I would be a micro enterprise, because I would have 4 people and I actually, as the owner, would be one of those employees. It's not super important that you understand which category that you fit in. I can help you with that. So that's, if you don't understand this, which it took me about a month during the first round to understand how they were really looking at this, then don't worry about it. That's one of those questions that you probably don't have to have the answer to. But if I have a question, because that's something that I'll have to determine to help the city supply information to the state, then I'll get in touch with you and ask some more questions. So I want you to know that there are 2 different categories, but if you don't know which one you fall into, it's okay. So part of that determination then leads to who's eligible. So with CDBG money, or Community Development Block Grant money, it must primarily benefit people that are considered low to moderate income. So what will also happen, and we'll go through these forms and you'll see, is that we're going to ask, what your average income is. And we're going to use that based on, or use some information that the state has provided us to determine if you're considered low to moderate income. And again, that's not something that you need to be concerned about right now. If I have a question or concern about it when I'm filling out the documentation at the tail end, I'll get with you and ask you those questions. I don't want that to scare anybody off. So if a question comes up, during the review of your application, then I'll reach out to you. The important thing to know is this last statement back here starts down at the bottom, that no matter what category you're in, you also must certify that why you need this money. And basically that if you don't get this money, then your business could close or jobs will be lost without this money. That is something that is very important. And I'm going to go to the next next page. This certification can be in the form of a letter, which I can provide you with some wording for that, or in the application, which we'll go through in more detail. There are questions that ask, why do you need this money? And if that explanation, meets that certification, for instance, in a different round in a different community, then someone had said, well, I had to lay 2 people off, while we were shut down because we were non-essential. I'm going to use this money to hire them back. If I don't get this money, I can't hire them back. And so therefore those 2 jobs would be lost. So if the statement that you give in your application doesn't meet the requirement, then I'll reach out to you and we'll talk about that a little bit more. Eligibility requirements. So these are eligibility requirements for the program, and they actually would apply then to you. So might be something you should think about. So number 1, the business must physically be located within the corporate limits of the city of Charlestown. So you want to make sure that your business that you're applying for this funding for is actually in the city of Charlestown's, city limits. That is a grant requirement from the state and the federal government. So the city can't waive that for you. So if you're not physically located in the city of Charlestown, unfortunately, you're not eligible. Your business must be a for-profit business. So if you're a nonprofit and you're wanting money, then I'm sorry, you can't get this money from this program. This is also a state and federal requirement that's passed down to the city. So the city can't make exceptions for that. You're also not eligible if you have a business in which the majority owner or member of the immediate family is an elected official of the city of Charlestown or a member of the City of Charlestown Redevelopment Commission. This Redevelopment Commission is the group that's actually going to do the final approval of these before it goes to the state for the actual final approval. So if you fit that category, then you're not eligible. Also, any businesses that are deemed ineligible by HUD, which is where this funding actually comes from, or the City of Charlestown. So if you have a business that is against the local rules and requirements and zoning of the City of Charlestown, then you're not going to be eligible. This goes through just what types of structure your business can have. A variety of structures that you can have. You can also be self-employed. You must have been in operation on or before March 1st. So if you started your business after March 1st, then you're not going to be eligible for this program. And also you must be in compliance with any state or local regulations or requirements at the time you apply. Eligible businesses can include essential and non-essential businesses, so long as a business is continuing to pay employees, provide health insurance, is willing to certify that previously furloughed or terminated employees will be rehired with the proceeds of this grant or other supplemental federally funded grant or loan programs. That doesn't mean that you have to hire back the same exact person. I know that some people, if they were furloughed or if you had to shut your doors and your employees, were able to find jobs somewhere else, you might not be able to hire that person back. That's okay. We just like to know if you're going to hire someone, with those funds. It doesn't have to be the exact same person. And then if there are multiple owners, there can't be multiple applicants for the same property parcel or address. Now, for some reason, and you should have separate addresses. I know we had a kind of a small older strip in another community that had applied for that, but they weren't all the same address. But if there are 2 owners, then both owners can apply for money for the same business. Does anybody have questions so far? And if you do, just someone stop me or yell at me or something.
Did you say both owners apply or just one owner should apply?
She's asking if both owners should apply or just one.
What I was saying is that both owners should not apply for a separate grant for the same business.
Thank you.
So if you are, if you have 2 owners, I'm going to ask a more specific question if that's okay. If you have 2 owners in your business, how many employees do you have?
Well, it's just me and my husband own the business together.
Okay. Well, then one of you, if you and your husband own it together and you're the only two employees?
Well, no, I am the employee.
Okay. Then one of you has to qualify. That's all. So it'll be, one of you has to qualify. Both owners don't have to apply, but on the application, if you do both own it, even though you're an employee and he may not be, then go ahead and both of you sign the application form. So if you meet those requirements above, then you can be considered for a maximum grant of $10,000. That is a federal requirement, or excuse me, a state requirement that they capped each grant at $10,000. Another thing to know, that the grant funds can only be used by businesses for working capital expenses, okay? So if you decided that you wanted to put a new roof on your structure with this money, you can't do that. If you wanted to add more outdoor seating or an awning to do outdoor seating, you can't do that. What you can use that money for is, and it could be more than these purposes, but salaries, general operating expenses like rent, utilities, inventory, advertising, marketing expenses. If you don't have a big online presence, or maybe you have a restaurant and don't really have a way to take orders online, that could be something you could use that for. Basically anything that isn't construction related. So, and if you have specific questions about that, then I'll be glad to talk to you individually about it. But just know that it's supposed to be for working capital only. And that's a very broad definition. So that's why I say if you have questions that we can talk about that. The city wants to award these grants to as many people as possible. But if funding becomes limited, the city wanted you to know how they're going to review these and rank these applications. So the next few bullet points talk about that. About how they're going to rank those, and this had to be put in their application to the state. And so they'll have preference for businesses that are minority, women, or veteran owned, how many jobs it might be retained as the date of the application. So if they're retaining or hiring more people, then that might take precedence over those that are just keeping one person. If they're hiring or bringing back 10, that might rank a little higher. And then the next ones get into the degree to which you've been impacted due to the pandemic. So some of your businesses, I know from the public hearing, that weren't essential. So you were shut down for months. Maybe during those months you missed, because the festivals were shut down. So maybe some of that revenue that you get to last throughout the year usually came during Founders Day, or even at Christmas, or whatever festival that the city of Charlestown isn't having right now because they can't.
We haven't had that.
I'm sorry? Oh, so that's when you need to tell your story. So in the application, there's a spot for that. If that's not big enough for you, then attach something, handwrite it, whatever, that tells what your story is. It tells how you've been affected, how much you've been affected, because that certainly will go into scoring these if the city gets more applications than they have money for. Even if you had to, if you're a restaurant or any other type of business that you've had to employ social distancing requirements, or even in beauty salon or whatever that may be, let us know what you've had to do, to maintain and comply with all the existing rules and requirements. You can't tell us too much in that. I guess that's what I'm getting at. You can't tell us too much with regard to how you've been affected. Also, as I said earlier, we're going to look at the level of participation by businesses and other programs, and that's not going to hurt or harm you. Some businesses applied and weren't eligible for that and didn't get any. Some businesses may have some language barriers and didn't apply and may have not gotten it anyway. So, but we do want to know whether you did participate or you did apply. And then those businesses that employ at least 51% low and moderate income persons are going to take precedent over those businesses that don't. So this is what you've all been waiting for, is how to apply. So I know Leah has some physical packets there. Also, we're going to go through these documents in just a few minutes, but they're also available on the city's website. And I've got, for those that had put their name in the portal that the city provided before the grant was awarded, then I'm going to send out application packets to them as well. And that's where I said earlier, you may get more than one application packet. But once you get that, you'll submit your completed applications, physically submit them to the mayor's office. If that's a cumbersome or burdensome for somebody, just let me know. But the reason that we're doing this instead of doing it online is there are a lot of businesses that may not have, online access or the ability to do that. But also we want to make sure that if you submit an application that you get receipt that we actually got it. We want you to know that the city got it. Sometimes you submit things by email or online somehow, then there's really no guarantee that it gets through. So the city wants to make sure that we get your applications, and I know that you'd like to make sure that we got it as well. So once you do that by sending it to the mayor's office on the second floor of City Hall, then you'll get a receipt within 2 business days of you dropping that off. Now, if you don't get that receipt, then you let me know. So you drop it off and 2 business days later, you don't have anything, and you call me and say, hey, I submitted it, I didn't get a receipt, and I'll track that down and make sure we get something from you. The next section goes into how we're going to select this, how we're going to select people and what the process is. So once you apply, then what's going to happen then is that as part of the application process, I'll do that. You're going to fill out a number of documents. None of them are horrible, so don't be afraid. They're not horrible. So part of that is the actual application. Another piece is we're going to ask you to provide your business name, employee codes or initials, which I'll go over in detail, what type of job the employee holds, and then that employee's average annual income just from that position. And I'll go into more detail of that in a minute when you can actually see the form. So we're going to use that to determine eligibility. And so that's why that's important. So if you send in an application and that form's not in there, you're going to get a call or an email from me and say, hey, can't process your application until we do this. And then you may say, I don't understand how to fill that out, and then I'll walk you through it and we'll get it done. So once we get all the applications, then I will put a synopsis together for the selection committee to meet, and the selection committee will review all the applications. Sorry, there's a typo here. For recommendation to the city council, and this should actually not be city council, it's redevelopment commission. So I'll change that. The selection committee will provide a list of the recommended recipients to the City of Charlestown Redevelopment Commission for final approval. And then if that is approved by the state, which all of these grants have to be approved by the state as well, and that's just eligibility that has to be approved, then you as businesses that were awarded will be asked to enter into an agreement of sorts with the city, a grant agreement with the city. Once that's signed and the money's there, then you'll get 100% of the funds dispersed. So once we get to that point, you'll get 100% of that money. This money is tax-free. Shouldn't say tax-free. Is non-taxable. So we're going to ask for a copy of your W-9 or ask you to fill one out, but you're not going to be taxed on this money. So at the end of this year, I guess really the beginning of next, you would not receive a 1099 from the City of Charlestown for that $10,000. So I just want you all to know that this is this money's not taxable. I want you also to be aware though, so if you do get this money, and that this is going to be spelled out in that agreement you would sign, that the city has to follow up with you for 2 years. So 1 year after closeout. So let's say the grant was closed out at December 31st of this year. So by December 31st of 2021, we'd reach out to you and say, hey, you know, how many jobs do you have? And we would look at from the first year to this year. And what's the change in that number of jobs? Are you still in business? We haven't really been given the exact verbiage on that, or I would provide it, but I don't really know, and I don't think they've made it yet. But I just want you to know that for 2 years, someone will be contacting you to ask those questions. If the answer is, well, I had to close my doors anyway, which I hope doesn't happen to any of you unless that's what you want, there's no penalty for that, but the state just needs to track it for HUD purposes. And then the last statement is the city, you know, reserves the right to reject any or all applications received. So that goes through the process. Is there any issue with the process right now that anybody has a question about? Okay. So this next document is the actual application form. So it asks some very simple things. Up at the top, it does say that these are for working capital expenses. So it says that in a lot of places. I just want everybody to understand that. We're just asking for company name. If the company name is different than what's registered with Secretary of State, then please put that. If it's the same, then that's no problem. Your federal ID number, your business address, your business phone. The next two are really important, your owner name and phone number and an email address. That's how I'm gonna get in touch with you if I have questions. So I probably will have it somewhere else, but I'd like for that to be, you know, some way that I can get in touch with you. It's not gonna be published anywhere. I'm not gonna sell those numbers or email addresses to anyone. I don't even know how to do that. So, that needs to be, you know, a good contact information, phone number, email address. This is where we get into a brief company history or narrative of, you know, kind of what does your business do? If it's not self-explanatory. Say King's Donuts is self-explanatory, you know, but maybe not. So just, you know, how did you come about that? Just give us a little bit of a history of, you know, what your business is and why you're in business. And then the next is indicate whether your business is minority, women, or veteran owned, or it could be all three or two of the three. Let us know that. And how many employees you have. And if the owner's an employee, then put that down as well. And then just let us know if you provide any type of benefits. We don't need to know how much it costs you to provide those benefits, but if you provide health insurance for your employees or vacation pay or sick pay or whatever it is, just please list that. Next one is really important. That's where we want to know how much money you want. So again, the maximum is $10,000. You don't have to request $10,000, but that is the maximum. And then what do you intend to use the money for? And again, it states that it's working capital only. So if you need I realize some of these fields are pretty small and a lot of you might just handwrite this. So if you need to put extra pages to it, then please go ahead, just write see attached and we'll get that and turn that in. The next section is basically checking boxes. So this gets back to any of the other CARES Act money. So did you get an SBA loan or payroll protection, money from payroll protection program or other COVID-19 funding? If you did, check yes. And if you did apply, did you receive any? Because a lot of people weren't eligible for that, even though they applied. And then answer yes or no. And if you did receive, then how much was it? The next things are documents that need to be included with the application or that we're going to request from you before your application could be approved. And I'll go over those as well. And then the last, if, you know, just the name and signature of the owner, or if there are multiple owners, then get them to sign as well. Does anyone have questions about the application right now?
deadline?
We try to just ask questions that we actually had to have the answers for in order to meet all the state's requirements so the city can access the money. We try not to get too in depth.
Hey, Jill.
So this, yeah, I'm sorry.
We did have a question here. I just
Okay, sorry.
pick it up. That's okay. The question was, what is the deadline for turning in the documents?
That's a very good question. There is no deadline per se, but right now, I'd say get it in as soon as possible because the city and the state wants the city to get this money out the door as soon as possible. I know the city does as well. And right now I have a list of at least 25 businesses that are interested in this program. So it's not a first come, first serve, but it certainly is. If we get a good number of applications in quickly, we're going to sit down with the selection committee and meet. So the longer it takes you, the less likely you are for there to be funding available. So while there is no hard and fast deadline, the money will run out. So I would just do it as soon as possible.
We have another question here, Jill.
Sure.
Maintenance, can it be used for maintenance, the working capital?
Sure, that's working capital. Now, the maintenance, if you're talking about, again, I'm going back to like maintenance of your roof or something like that. Like if you're doing, well, if that's what you need to use it for, I'd like to talk to you, at another time. We can talk about that. I'd like to ask you a few more questions that I don't know that anybody else needs to know the answer to, if that makes sense. But
then another question is back up before the signature on this page where it says the 3 different types of documentation. And you said you can go over those again. Do we need those documentations to turn in the first phase of the paperwork?
Did you catch that?
no, I didn't. I caught bits and pieces.
Okay. We're a little bit far away from the mic here. The question was on which page are you looking at? Can you hold it up? Okay, gotcha. So on this page that you have up, the document,
Okay.
the 3 documents. Your question was, do they need those to turn in this first phase of?
It would be good if you had those with this application because then it's complete. Otherwise, if you turn it in, then I'm going to have to go back to you and ask for that, and then you're going to have to get it to me. So it would be good if you could have all of these turned in at the same time. Now, if something's not right or you've forgotten, then I'm going to, use the contact information that you gave me and reach out to you and say, hey, I need this as soon as possible. Do you have any questions? It's in your best interest to have everything, up front, but again, I understand if you can't. Did that answer that question?
I think it did. She wants to know now, do they need to do the W-9 if they're already an LLC?
The W-9 just gives your federal ID number. A lot of times, I think the city is going to want that W-9 to have on file because they're audited by the State Board of Accounts, and the city's going to write these the businesses that get this grant money a check, and they're going to need to have proper documentation for every check that they write. So it's common practice for the city, if they're writing a check to somebody, if it's not payroll, that they have your W-9 on form, or excuse me, W-9 form on file. So, and really it's just that first page. I know the one that I think is attached there is the one that I got off the federal government website, which is like a 6-page thing, but most of that's just instructions. So you really just need the first page of that. So I guess the answer is yes, please fill out a W-9. And even if you're self-employed and don't have a federal ID number, then we would need that with your Social Security number.
Okay, I think that answers the question.
Okay, so now we'll get into this form. Bear with me just a second here. I've got to move my. So this is now what is required, I'll have to take the forms that you fill out, put them all into one form and submit that to the state in order to confirm eligibility before the state will release grant funds to the city and then to you. So what they've provided is a much easier way to track income and for us to figure this out. It'll be a lot easier for you to do and easier to determine eligibility for them. So so let's say that I had a business. I'm just going to call it Jill's business because I'm very uncreative today, I guess. So I had a business and I had 5 employees, one of which is me. And so I can either enter in initials. So my initials are JS plus, 4 other employees' initials. Or if you don't feel comfortable putting employee initials down there, then you can assign your employees a number. Maybe you already have a number for them and list that number. Just some way that if someone wants to go back and ask if you actually had this employee and was this their average yearly income, that we could say, yes, this is employee 1. We don't need to know what their name is, but at some point you would be able to say, yes, employee 1 is Jill Saygesser, even though I didn't put her initials there. That's employee 1. This is the information. So we would need employee initials. If you don't have any employees, you're self-employed or just you, then put your initials there. What your job type is. And I guess that's up for interpretation. This is filled out, I think, a lot for restaurants and some other things. So just put your job type or the job type of that employee. So if Jill's business was a restaurant, which again is an awful name for a restaurant, but then I might have servers, I might have hostess, I might have kitchen staff. And then you would put the average annual or yearly income for that employee. So if it were me again, and say I had 3 other jobs, but no one cares about them, they just care about what I'm making at this business at that job. So if I made $20,000 a year from that job, then that's what would be put down here. So you would just estimate what the average yearly income would be for your employee or yourself and put that in this line. And that is it. You don't have to give us documentation, don't have to give us pay stubs. I don't really want any of that stuff. You don't have to give us your financial information. So this is all we really want from you as far as your employees and their income is this sheet. Does anyone have questions about that?
Another question here.
Yeah.
Net or gross?
That's a good question. You better do net because gross doesn't count. And the reason I'm working through that in my head, because this is contrary to what they normally use for income verification. And so generally we would have to go by household, and we're treating everyone as a 1-person household. So just do the net average yearly income.
So if my business, I'm the only employee, but I don't really pay myself a salary, would I include myself and what the business made on that form?
You wouldn't include what the business made. Well, if that's the case, there's another form. So if that's the case for you, there's another form that can be filled out. Let me, bear with me a second. I didn't put it on the website because I didn't want to confuse people and have them fill out both or think they had to fill out both. But if you don't make anything from that business, just put what your average yearly income is in that form. Does that make sense? Because you would be the owner of that. And if you didn't fill that out, then I would call and ask those questions of you. And if you, so if you're the owner, I would just put down what your average yearly income is, period. because that's how we'd have to determine it since you're the only one.
Another question? Okay.
Okay, when I file my taxes, it's me and my husband together, but I'm the only one that makes income off this business.
Jill.
So if I heard that right, then you and your husband, which both own, but you file your taxes jointly, and you're the only one that really makes income off of this, though? Is that right? Then how do you fill this out? I would just fill out what your average yearly income is from that job, from that business. Okay. And let's say that you're an employee, and maybe as an owner, you know, obviously you can get money from that business, but maybe you have a W-2 and you actually have a salary or a wage. And if you have a W-2, I would use your W-2 for that. Does that make sense? And everybody has such different situations. It's hard to do something that covers everyone. That's why I say, if you have any questions at all, just let me know, because it's not rocket science, but it also can be very confusing. And they've tried very hard to make a one-size-fits-all form, but it doesn't fit all. So that's why I think on some of those things, if you have specific questions, I'll be glad to talk to you and talk you through some of that as well. Are there any more questions about this form?
I don't think we have any here.
Okay. So that's really, besides the W-9, which is right here, besides the W-9, that basically takes care of all of that, the documents that you would have to submit with your application. The one thing that I didn't show, but we've talked about, is the statement that says that jobs will be lost, or the business could close without this money. And we only need that statement if you didn't make such a statement in your actual application document. So as part of your saying why you need the money, if you said, again, oh, because I've been floating this business with my own personal money, I don't have any more money to float, this is going to close if I don't get this money to be able to replenish, what I've given to it. So something like that. So if you make those statements in your explanation as to why you need the money, we don't need a separate statement. But if you don't, or it doesn't meet that, then I'll get back with you and send you something that will. Let's see, I'll go back to this, and the other documents that were listed on the website are not part of the application, but the city wanted to make sure that everybody knew what they'd be looking at. So this is the score sheet. Whereas before I said, if there's more requests than there are funding, then there would be some criteria used to figure out who gets the money, and felt that it was important for you all to know how these applications would be scored if that's the case. And so that's what that is, just transparency purposes. That's what's going to be used by the committee to score these applications if necessary. And then the next document, and it does say sample all over it, because I didn't want you to fill this out because you don't need to yet. If you're awarded a grant by the Redevelopment Commission and the city, then I will send you the grant agreement that pertains to you. So you would get this sent to you to fill out. But I wanted you to see what it would say in case you didn't like some of the things and decided you didn't want to apply for the money or had any questions. So basically here in the scope of work, it's pretty much the meat of it. So that you agree to whatever you've said you're going to use the money for, that we put that in here, that you agree to that. If it's working capital, then working capital. If you say I'm going to use it to pay my rent and utilities, if you're more specific, we'll put a more specific scope in here, project description. The next one is just to kind of certify that, next one says that you'll get X amount of dollars. So if the city awards you $10,000, it'll be $10,000. If it's less than that, it'll be less than that. And then these commitments more are toward you. It lets you know that that there are going to be some reporting. As I said earlier, that we're going to contact, the city's going to contact you for a period of 2 years, at least annually, to see the status of your business, number of current employees. There could be more things that they ask. That you've reported the receipt of X amount of dollars in federal CARES Act money, which could have been payroll protection or small business assistant or small business administration money. And that if we find that where the CARES Act money comes in, so say Jill's business got $10,000 in payroll protection program, and I was going to use that to keep myself and my other employee employed from, I don't know, July to August. And then I applied to the city of Charlestown for $10,000 to keep myself and my other employee employed from July through August. Then that's a duplication of benefits. So in a lot of cases, the payroll protection program money may have run out if you got it, or maybe you use that for payroll, but you didn't use it to pay your rent, or you didn't use it to pay your utility bills. So that's not a duplication, even if it's the same period of time. Then we mentioned who the grantee is. So we would put your business name and address here in case we needed to contact anyone. And then that's signed by the mayor, the clerk treasurer, and then the owner of the business. And that is it with regard to forms and process. Are there any other questions or comments?
If we receive money from the community foundation, hello?
Can somebody repeat that for me, please?
I'm sorry. If they've received a loan from the community foundation, is that
Right?
It's my understanding that the community foundation money was not CARES Act money. That was local money that was raised. So that's not an issue as far as duplication of benefits. If you want to tell the committee that you received money from the community foundation, that's totally up to you. But that's not part of those federal CARES Act money. And if you have questions about that too individually, then just give me a call, because I can look all that up if I don't know. But it's my understanding, at least, that local community foundation money was locally raised and funded. It was not part of CARES Act. Anything else?
I don't think so, Jill. It seems like that's
Think that's enough?
It's a lot. It is probably a lot to take in. I think we've had some good questions, and you know, everyone who wasn't able to make it will be able to watch this. And then if we need to do this again, or you think of something between now and then, and you want to, you know, call or email Jill. She's always available, and has been doing these for quite a while. Has a lot of experience with this, so she's going to be a great resource for helping to get this funding into your hands. Ruthie, do you, Ricky, does anyone else with us on Zoom have anything to add or ask?
No, thanks, Jill, for all your hard work.
It's my pleasure, Ruthie.
All right. If you're ready and we don't have anyone else.
Motion to adjourn.
Come on, motion to adjourn.
All right. Thank you so much. And please don't hesitate to give me a call if you have specific questions.
Thanks, Jill.
All right. Bye.